To talk about all this, I do want to welcome in John Hardie. He is the Deputy Director of the Russia Program at the Foundation of Defense for Democracies. John, welcome to the show. A lot of people were surprised to hear this shift in tone from the administration. Of course, this has come after just a few weeks ago, we know that the president said that he was pretty upset with Vladimir Putin because of his continued aggression on the ground in Ukraine. But the president echoing what Secretary Rubio said in that soundbite we just played in the Oval Office earlier, and I want to play that now.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that.
Okay, so, John, yesterday the president actually said that he thought negotiations were going well. So what has shifted here? What has the administration discovered?
Well, I think this frustration has been mounting for quite some time. I think that 24 hours was always an unrealistic deadline, but it seemed that President Trump did believe that he could sort of impose his personality on the situation and reach a speedy peace deal. And I think he's finding that it's somewhat of an intractable conflict. And certainly the Russians have made very maximalist demands and have expressed no desire to walk back on that. Putin is confident that his forces now have the upper hand and is trying to press that battlefield advantage, sort of dragging out negotiations.
You know, the president has threatened Russia with more sanctions, specifically against its oil, and then actually said that the U.S. wouldn't do business with anybody else who actually bought oil from Russia. And they say that this timeline is running thin for Ukraine. They want a decision by the end of the month, which is just about a week away here. Do you think that those threats of sanctions are enough to motivate Putin? Because before, it seems like sanctions really have done nothing to stop this unprovoked war.
Well, I think the sense of urgency is good and that the economic threats are good. Unfortunately, Trump has not really followed through on them yet, and it's unclear if he would. But what we saw today was really a shift in the stance. It's not, if you don't do X by Y date, we'll impose economic punishment. It's, if you don't do that, then we're just going to wash our hands and walk away. I think that the risk there is actually perversely incentivizing the Kremlin to be more intransigent because, while Putin might ideally want some sort of deal with the U.S. that sort of gives him everything he wants, I think perhaps the next best thing would just be to see that the U.S. walk away, wash its hands of Ukraine, which I think in the Kremlin's mind would eventually include an end to U.S. aid for Ukraine.
Dmitry Peskov, who's a spokesperson for the Kremlin, he responded to Secretary Rubio's remarks and saying this. He said that Russia is committed to resolving this conflict, ensuring its own interest. And I thought this part was really interesting. He said it is open to dialogue. We continue to do this. But as you know, Ukraine has already agreed to a short-term ceasefire and actually a full-term peace deal proposal from the U.S. Russia hasn't done this. Are they just kicking this can down the road? Are they serious at all, or are they just playing here?
I think Putin has shown very little interest in a genuine peace deal, or rather a peace deal that does not mean an effective Ukrainian capitulation. His goal was to make Ukraine a vassal state, and he hasn't walked away from that goal despite the failure of Russia's initial regime change operation. So, as I said before, right now he's confident that he kind of has the upper hand militarily, and he's trying to press that advantage. So, just from my perspective, I think if you want to kind of change his mind, you're going to need to help Ukraine kind of exhaust the Russian military's offensive potential. And I think also ramping up the economic pressure could be helpful there, too.
Before we go, got to ask you this real quickly, because also just yesterday, the president signaled that the U.S. was actually now planning on signing that rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine that was on the table a while ago before that big blow up in the Oval Office between President Zelensky and him and J.D. Vance. Do you think that falls off if Russia is unable to come to the table? Does the U.S. still want to do business in Ukraine?
I think the political imperative for Trump to have that deal, which just for background for viewers who may not understand, This deal, it probably won't actually result in all that much in terms of minerals coming to the U.S., at least not at first. It's going to take some time for that to bear fruit. I think for Trump, what it really is political cover to explain why he's still providing aid. The U.S. is kind of extracting something in return. Well, if Trump is washing his hands, but potentially ending U.S. aid for Ukraine, which would be a really bad idea, the imperative for that minerals agreement, probably won't be as strong.
Yeah. And right now they seem like they're not too upset with Ukraine, which is also a shift in stance as well from this administration. John Hardie, appreciate your insight tonight. Good to see you.